No, go ahead. I'm find my brother one. How was it?
It was excellent. And you really want some stuff to like, which is first thing we want to live on the part of America that is nowhere near. Horrible.
Fuel rod.
Yes.
Actually, sort of mirroring each other tomorrow, but they're same speaker.
I thought about that. It's hard to go outside the country. 6 hours. Cold from there. Different things get bad. You know, you probably listen back. Big person over here on the huh? So you made the other man. As long as they think you're contributing.
We're going to have a VIP conference here. What's going to happen?
Tables, Cliff?
Some chairs when you don't start talking. Is that what's going to happen?
You gotta be careful.
Here's the guy right here.
I don't have the link.
That's fine.
I don't have it.
You're gonna give me that.
Huh?
Yeah, I was talking to all freeloaders.
I can give it to you later. Four people have them. Okay, you guys are all live. Okay, wave. Let's do it.
Hey! All people need ether. Workshop now.
It's workshop.
Pitches are okay.
We're not going to kick anyone out right now. Man, he knew what he was doing when he was in here.
What happened? Worried last night about whether you're going to be viewed.
Oh, you found some cannabis? I know what you're talking about. So those that didn't get any cannabis, we have plenty of cannabis.
Yeah, she didn't get any.
So I'll have seeds and cannabis after this workshop available from 5 to 6:30 in the exhibit hall. Okay. We're not going to do a speech at all. What I want to do is talk to you about why we're having this conference. And I want to ask you to be here to share with me why you're here. And the whole purpose of this is to leave this workshop with a better understanding of why we wasted all this money to come to Denver when we could all be, I'd be digging holes, putting up fences, and planting seeds. So let me give you a quick synopsis of what the Oppenheimer Ranch project is. And my partner will be here any moment. When I met Leah several years ago, we hit it off and we started talking about what our dreams were. And one of her dreams was to have a homestead because her uncle was homesteading up in Vermont. He was one of this 1970s group because I remember in my little suburb that across the street in a little, we called it Jew Hills. And I'm not against Jewish people because Leah is half Jewish. But that's what we called it. It's where all the Jewish kids lived across the street. But a lot of their houses had these weird things on their roof. We didn't know what they were on our side. We're like, what the hell are those square things? And so that was the beginning of the first solar systems going into houses in the late 70s. And these things sucked. Like 8 panels was like 125 watts.
Yeah.
And then today I'm thinking, like, what the hell would that run? It really wouldn't do anything. It would give you some light, but in the houses I lived in the 70s, it wouldn't run a refrigerator unless you had 50,000 of those. So that was the beginning of sustainability back then. And her uncle bought this homestead up in Vermont, 100 acres or something. I don't know. She could tell you better. But he got into the solar panels, sustainability, food, and water. And here's Leah. So our uncle started this homestead, and he's still working on it right now. It is your uncle?
Yeah.
Yeah, so now he has more modern solar panels, and I don't know more about the project, but maybe she could help you explain it in the middle.
I don't know what you said before, but I've got this Uncle Larry. He's my dad's brother, and what an inspiration. I mean, he bought 50 acres of land up in Vermont in the 80s. I was about 5 at the time, and it was going to cost him $30,000 to run an electric line onto his house. So we said, screw that. You know, solar was massively expensive at the time, but it was still cheaper than $30,000 for a line. So he just went and did it. And he's a tinkerer. I mean, he does all kinds of stuff. He builds telescopes and boats and loves to experiment, and, you know, just kind of kept going and going with that. And he's just evolved and tweaked his solar system over time. And big fan of propane, you know, as backup heating, which probably isn't sustainable in the long run, but for now it's helpful. So pretty cool thing. It took me a while to realize that having had that experience as a kid really informed my decision to do what we're doing today.
So then there was that, and then we met and we started talking. And I told her that my idea was the South San Juans. And her main need that I thought, because remember, I'm listening to her and my interpretation of what she's saying is mine.
No kidding.
So what I heard was that she wanted someplace that had seasons and snow. And I was like, South San Juan, shit, 50 feet of snow, one of the most biodiverse areas above 9,000 feet on the planet. From 9,000 to 15,000 feet where we live, there are 1,000 exotic medicinal species that are nowhere on Earth. And some people live in New Mexico or Arizona that don't even have that many species. And we're just talking the high alpine region where we live. And so this was a good sell to her. And and then we started talking about the logistics of the future of the Earth. So back then, she was helping me with the March Against Monsanto. We were well aware of the ruse in the government, the revolving door, the fact that we live in a corporatocracy, which is evolving into idiocracy. Literally, we're going to have toilets in couches. Literally. The young people I know, I walk in and they're just playing games. And they're playing games on big screen TVs, and they're playing games, and they're playing games, and they're playing games. They're staring at things. Now, I'm not going to downplay games, because I'm sure if you're going to be a military fighter or someone else, game playing would be good for murdering people. And if computers were going to continue to exist in perpetuity forever because the grid was hardened and everything was safe, well, then games would probably have a point in the future. But there is a 90% probability that in everyone's future in this room, that a catastrophic event is going to occur. And it is going to be socioeconomic. It's going to be driven by, interestingly enough, space. But the governments want you to believe that it's being driven by you so that you remain compliant. And so we were kind of sick of that. And I had been working alone in this little crack house room I was in on eBay, literally working 70 hours a week. And I was making shit tons of money because my plan was I'm going to sit in this hole until I have a pile of money to buy everything I need to just walk away. And it was an opt out. I was going to opt out. And as I'm piling the money, I'm buying chainsaws, I'm buying shovels. What else do I need? I go to this prepping site. So I'm buying this shit that literally I'm going to leave with.
And in the meantime, I had been prepping at my house in Philly, just stocking food in the basement, you know, just like as much as I can get the stockpile of this, the better, you know.
So when I went over her house for the first time and I went in her basement, I was scared. Because first there's like food everywhere. And then there's like hundreds of gallons of water.
Oh God, she's a crazy prepping girl.
And she opens up the cannon safe and there's like AR.
Precious metals.
Now at this time, I'm pretty anti-gun. Yeah, so
Oh, you should have heard the first argument we had about firearms. That was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm under the impression, which is completely logical and factual, that you can't get hurt from a gun if you don't have one. And you also can't get in a gunfight if you don't have any guns.
Yeah, but you also can't protect yourself.
Yeah, but where we live, good people don't have guns. See, now where we live now,
Everybody
has
has guns.
Yeah. So, and it seems to be 100 times safer when everyone has guns than when you're in a liberal city where only criminals have guns, and the good people have convinced you don't need a gun because that causes gun stuff.
Now, the great irony in this, of course, is that we came from like the murder capital of the U.S. to Little Pagosa, which is pretty darn safe, and only then do we have a crazy delusional stalker after us. But anyway.
Yeah, and I lived in some of the worst crack neighborhoods in the world and hung with some of the craziest people. And I did get shot at. I got shot in the face by a shotgun once, but that was not at me. I just happened to be walking down the road and someone shot a shotgun up there. Like, ow!
That doesn't count.
But it was that kind of town. There's very few stray bullets in our town, but there's constant shooting. Down at the bottom of the road where we live is all guns all the time. Boom, 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 boom. But everyone's shooting into a target, into a hill. And we know that because they're our neighbors, and we're like, oh, we know who's shooting. Like where I grew up, we didn't know who's shooting. We just try to like stay in between lots of walls. But let's go to the middle
You're
of the
shooting,
house.
you go, oh God, is that fireworks? Is it my neighbor? Ah!
So we met and we had been thinking about similar things. So then we sat down and we started to concoct a plan. And I think it was just a website. We were going to start a website and a Facebook page because I was already a social media organizer. I had organized the March Against Monsanto in Philly, and I was helping organize other marches, March Against Corruption and the Fed, anything that has to do with corruption in government, because I was pretty smart and I knew of my constitutional rights, and I went right into the city hall in Philly and I said, I want to do this, and I want to bring guns, and I want to do that. And they gave me the permits. They gave me the paperwork to get the permits. I filled it out, and because I did everything I had to do, I was allowed to do whatever I wanted because that's my right. And this only happens in major cities that you're able to do this. Then I would get the support of the police, the feds, and just as long as no one's an asshole and throwing bottles, and we're all there to say, you government, it's completely legal. Now, the problem with that is it usually attracts Antifa or other troublemakers, other things called agent provocateurs. So the purpose of heavy security today, if you were an agent provocateur, you would have gotten in that line where our friend was wanting you down, and you would have popped back and back because you'd have been alone, and then you'd have turned around and you would have never come to this event. And that was the purpose of heavy security. Also, this group we now know is all with us. So if we together will be able to point out in the future a spy, because you will pick up on it. Someone will be acting strange, sitting alone. No one will know them. And they'll be questioning you why you're here, or what the purpose of this is, because they want to switch the narrative. And if you were here in my first talk, I explained that with Flat Earth. So once there's a large group of people that are onto the ruse and we're actually following climate science and we want to know about the history of the Earth, and we're starting to pick up on the fact that they're hiding information from you, they then intervene and they try to muddy the waters again. They did it with chemtrails and contrails. As soon as we figured out that there has been geoengineering since the 40s, scientists that are trying to say that the commercial flights are not chemtrails are now the people, you don't believe in chemtrails. I'm like, no, I specifically told you every type of chemtrail. There's stratospheric aerosol radiation. I was telling there was almost 1 million flights this year in North America to cloud seed. These are planes at low elevation that you can see. But you don't see them unless you guys live near a ski resort. And you don't see them unless you live near a farm where they pay for the cloud seeding. And they're planes that you can go to cloudseeding.com or whatever. They show you where these planes take off and fly, if they have silver iodide or what's in them, who paid for them. We pay for cloud seeding in Pagosa for Wolf Creek Pass because They promise us that it produces 5% more snow. Didn't you know that? And silver iodide is poisonous to the environment. And then in the last 5 years, we've proven that hail suppression causes bigger hail. So that probably means that cloud seeding causes less snow, as far as I'm concerned. So these methodologies we're using are completely bullshit and unproven for no purpose except to muddy the waters about the truth.
Someone's making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To create fake 5% of snow, some guy has some Cessnas. He's like, I'll spray that shit. Meh.
I think the other thing you got to keep in mind too is, about like things like flat Earth theory, if you even want to call it theory. I mean, the way I look at this is that if you're able to get a bunch of people to grab onto something like flat Earth, and then they also believe in this other conspiracy theory over here that maybe has a very high likelihood of being true. Well, if you then lump those people together, then they're all regarded as just a bunch of crazies, and you just can kind of go, oh, we don't need to listen to that. Yeah, I really think that that's ultimately what it's about. And to me, the real proof in the pudding for that was the fact that it was the 9/11 truth community that suddenly became the flat Earth community. Like, what is that? That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Because typically, from what I've seen, the 9/11 truth community has been very good critical thinkers, and they really analyze the information that's there. But there is no such critical thinking going on with flat Earth theory at all.
Is there anyone here that thinks 9/11 was concocted by people in caves called Al-Qaeda that flew 2 planes and collapsed 7 buildings? That's why Lee Wheelbarger didn't come, because that's his belief. And he thought about coming here, and he said, oh, I'm going to go on that yacht. He didn't explain to me why. He said, I'm busy on the yacht. But I guarantee that not a single person here would believe a word he said. I mean, I brought him on my show because I believe a lot of things Lee says, but not about 9/11.
What do you believe in?
Lots of his preparedness information. We did several videos on a bug out bus and solar energy and cool shit like that. Practical things. He's got great ideas. But he thought that he could be salacious and start to be the grand solar minimum insanity guy. And nobody listened because he was basing it on his own fairy tale. And that's why nobody watched his channel more, because they would listen to him like, does that sound real? Everyone has to move to the equator. We're all going to die in 5 years. No, that doesn't sound real. And I try to explain to you, most shifts on Earth are so gradual you cannot notice it. But 10 years later, you're like, holy shit, it's totally different. Because that's how the Earth works. It's a dynamic system, and it has other mechanisms that respond. So if it gets really cold in one region, it equalizes in the other regions. It's hard to tell an ice age is coming until you're in it. And the problem is, no one here thinks we're in an ice age because it's warm out. We are in the middle of a 1,000,000+ year-long ice age during an interglacial, which are short 8 to 12,000 year periods of warmth, followed by 80 to 90,000 year periods of cold. And we just came out of the last 80,000 year maximum glaciation at the maximum extent. It was called the Wisconsinian at 26,000 years ago, was the peak of ice. And then it catastrophically was eliminated during the comet impact.
Had a question over here?
Yeah, what really bothers me the most is that there's such a systematic suppression of knowledge, whether it's in agriculture, archaeology, whatever it is. And that's not just a few guys getting together and saying, let's make this under the table. That has to be organized on a huge scale,
yeah,
by some really, really smart, powerful people.
And the easiest way to do that is with academic funding. You say, we'll fund global warming research, but we won't fund this global cooling research because it's just not true. And that's largely how that mechanism works, it seems like. And I still think it comes from way higher up.
Well, I just want to find those people.
Well, here's the problem, and we can learn from history exactly a few things. The fact that when we bring up Velikovsky, and it goes all back to the powers that be, his information was suppressed. And now, even after it was proven, everything he said, there's radio waves coming from Jupiter, and Venus is hot. Every single thing he predicted, which everyone says, you can't predict that, was true. And Einstein was like, holy shit, Velikovsky's right. This is the same Einstein that thinks that E = mc² is a lie.
He knew
and you all
Velikovsky
believe
was
it.
correct.
Everyone's taught it. Einstein said, I made that shit up, dude. It's a math thing. That is not the law of the universe. That's my math thing I made up. But Velikovsky was right. That's what he told the federal government. And then he died that month, and they never funded Velikovsky's work. So that is a little bit of the powers that be finding out the truth and saying what, and now they're looking into Velikovsky. Then they started NASA. And you know, because we're the first people on the moon. We are awesome.
What about Tesla?
So he was killed because that's way before his time.
Yeah.
NASA's
Way.
just the guys from World War II.
Yeah, so let's bring it into clarity. I don't know if did anyone go to Adrian D'Amico's talk? Okay, so if you're still concerned if there's aliens in the world, you shouldn't be. The probability of no other intelligent species in this universe is probably zero. There is probably a 100% probability there are millions of other groups of smart, intelligent creatures. And I'm not going to say humans, because there's no humans except here. Now, almost everyone believes in aliens that look like humans and gods that look like humans, and everything looks like humans. Because that's the only thing we can relate to.
That's because we're anthropocentric. That's
we're
just how it
humans.
is. We've been doing that for thousands of years.
And I say, do a simple thought experiment. I'm an advanced alien creature called a human. And I just landed on Earth just 400,000 years ago. And I've been trying to communicate with ants the whole time. In 400,000 years, we have not been able to figure out how to communicate with some of the tiniest, most prolific builders we have ever found in the universe. And no matter what we do, we cannot communicate with the ants. So clearly there is a disconnect between higher levels of consciousness and lower levels. The ants are just as conscious as we are. They're more productive, they're less wasteful, and other things that we can't even figure out because we cannot talk to them. So how callous are you to think that aliens are coming down, picking you up and raping your daughter up in a ship because they're that dumb that they need to come and rape you to make genetic modified aliens? That it doesn't need to happen. If there are advanced races that are on other planets coming to visit us, they would not be abducting us. And if they did, they would do it in a way that we wouldn't notice, and they would do it in a way that we got replaced and not remember it. So if there's an abduction phenomenon, which how many people believe there is? Just that many? There's a bunch of people that believe that people are being abducted. So do I. And I believe that it has to do with people actually being abducted by covert groups called the government that are pretending to be aliens, that have reverse engineered alien technology as early as the 40s. We have eyewitness testimony from top physicists that worked on the alien spacecraft, who has now come forward for 3 decades, specifically describing the same ships that we are now seeing flying in the air, which are not being flown by aliens. They're being flown by military personnel that have reverse engineered them. But they need you to believe they're aliens because it's part of the misinformation, like flat Earth is 9/11.
But you just said that they're reversing alien crafts. So
Yeah.
But you're saying little green men don't exist. How do the little crafts get here?
The little green men left the ships. They didn't abduct anyone. These supposedly were found were archaeological. So say before the last mass extinction, there were people doing experiments here and something happened, a cosmic catastrophe where they had to leave a fleet of ships. And they didn't come back. They said the people down there will never know what those are. And that's what happened. They didn't care what happened when they found the ships because they're gone. You know, they live a billion light years away and they were here for a minute.
Well, they died with the last extinction. We had an advanced civilization.
There is
certainly
an
possible.
unlimited group of possibilities. But our government definitely found this technology, was able to reverse engineer a portion of it or not at all, and they're just using those 9 ships. Because according to Bob Lazar, they couldn't figure it out. There was no way they could figure out that element because we'd only discovered up to element 123 and they needed a higher element. But we have in fact made element 151 in the lab in the last 5 years, which is the exact thing 30 years ago said we needed to fly the ship.
The only thing we haven't done is have been able to figure out how to stabilize that element.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe that element was only stable because it was from another solar system where the conditions were different and maybe it could keep its stability.
Or we invented the unstable version to tell you that we can't stabilize it.
Possible.
Right?
Did you just say they invented the what?
Element 151.
Yeah, the other version, so we don't.
And they still fly the ship around. And the aliens are abducting everyone. So that's the kind of world we live in, and there's no chance that anytime soon. Do you think that they're gonna be like, look, everyone, we're gonna do a special thing on PBS?
The spiritual aspects to the whole alien thing. See, I think it's spiritual. I think that these things that people are, these experiences are actually demonic entities.
Okay, well, we can go into there, but we're not going to talk about
saying.
that. But I want to say this, and if you were listening, the spacecrafts that we're seeing are flown by humans. They were left here by much higher entities. If there are advanced races, they would not abduct us. They would not interfere with us. They could be occupying higher realms, which some people that have psychic abilities can hear them or listen to them. And they may not be demonic because heaven and hell and demons and Jesus and all that is anthropocentric, it's created by people.
I think there's both.
But people created all those concepts. So you need to get rid of religion created by people. There are 9,000 competing religions because religion is true. There are 9,000 competing religions because religion is made up. That's why there are 9,000 fairy tales, because each person has a good story. Now, the religion is based on historical information passed down. So there is information in the Bible that's true, that's historical, that's telling us of catastrophes and cataclysms. It's telling us of giants and aliens. Ezekiel saw the wheel. But we're not here to talk about religion because I think it doesn't serve a purpose when we're talking about facts and human and survival. But it does have to do with the control, because the Vatican, the largest cabal of religiosity, is raping people before your very lives and doing nothing about it. And there are millions of people that continue to go to those churches which are indoctrination rape facilities, and they donate money in that basket every day. They're like, hey, he's drunk again. Father's so Mick Schneider to me. I remember my drunk, before he got fired or whatever they do, excommunicated, he was like grabbing people's asses when I was 10 and he'd smell like whiskey, like, out in front of the church when you shake hands and go away. And I never understood that. And these are the people that have indoctrinated the world to be like, well, the Pope is great. I can't wait to touch him. Like it's a fraud. The world we live in is a fraud. It's a cryptocracy, corporatocracy run by evil pricks at the highest level, hiding information from you, poisoning your food so they can make a better dollar and bribe their kids in the air, whatever they're doing, because that means something. Do you know that every high-level job I ever had, no one asked me to see a piece of paper that I ever qualified for? No one looked at my high school diploma, my undergraduate degree. No one checked my credentials at grad school. I could have said I'm a doctor of blah, 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 and make shit up. And they'd be like, wow. Has anyone ever got a resume looked at? You would send it to monster.com. So that person who looked at it isn't the person that interviewed me because they never saw it. I was just the candidate. The person hiring me was like, he has great eye contact.
No, seriously, we were just talking about this the other day, right?
He's the guy.
The way you get a job is you stand up, you put out your hand, you say, my name is so-and-so. I was told once that was exactly how I got a job when there was a hard time deciding between, you know, like that can make or break everything.
Hold on.
But that's not how you survive. So we're talking about practical and personal issues here. So when we met, we had the same ideas, and then we developed the Oppenheimer Ranch project, which is still in development. I think I'm a little early on my, I say, oh, the house will be done next year.
I've been hearing this every
we'll have
year.
a barn by October. Yeah, but things don't always work out the way they do.
Twice as long, twice as much. But it makes
Plan
it,
on it.
Right.
makes it very
Right.
fun because
double it up.
all the things that you got to work out to make it happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can learn from your experience. It also gets you in touch with your local community. So our last electrician lives a block away.
You're doing.
Yeah. Well, and other people, you get to find out about the other people coming in to help you.
And it's just going to be evolving anyway, right?
How did you
It's never
fund
really
your
gonna end.
whole, how did you fund Oppenheimer Ranch?
Well, there's multiple pieces to that story. So the original Oppenheimer Ranch is the first piece of property purchased, which is up high at 8,500 feet. Amazing resources. We've got rid water up there, some of the cleanest water.
It's the island, right?
Yep. Yeah. And it is amazing up there. The problem that we had up there is that we have a property owners association, which essentially seriously harassed us for a couple of years, and it got real ugly. We sort of we still have that piece of land, and the solution for now is that I ended up weaseling my way onto the board of that organization, and that kind of keeps us a little peaceful, if not way more busy than I would like to be. But after about 6 months up there, between the problems, and also we had kind of a realization, there's a big difference between 8,500 feet and where we are now at 6,700 feet for winter. It's not that it was impossible to be up there during the winter, but it would mean, like plowing, like, what is it, 10 miles? 10 miles. I mean, 10 miles of steep, windy Forest Service road. We could easily have gotten stuck up there for 3 weeks at a time. We were just still living in a trailer, just keeping in supply of enough fuel to stay safe for the winter was going to be real difficult. So then we started going, maybe we need to look for something else for this winter. Well, that evolved into another piece of land down lower nearby, to which we've tacked on a few pieces now, similar kinds of resources. But, it's nice to have the differing resources of both places because they are somewhat different environments. And that affords us some benefits as well because we have some options.
And one of our neighbors is here.
Yo, Mike. Mike bought a piece of property next to us, which is awesome. And we've known Mike for quite some time now. So that's a good boon for us.
So any of these projects take money, and this land costs money. And the better the land, the more money you have to pay. But we got a pretty good deal. We got a really good deal. We bought a whole mountain and a river for less than 70,000.
It was 60,000.
60 grand.
Yeah, one of the pieces we added on. And it's kind of funny, right? Because most of this land is unusable. I mean, literally, it's a cliff.
You can't use this. It's all got trees and a river. All right.
But for us, just getting that piece of the river, that was huge.
Totally unusable.
And it also prevented us from getting cut off from the national forest on that side, and we knew we had another neighbor that was maybe going to be interested. And I said, you know what, I'll pay pretty much what this person wants because this is important for us. So it's worth it to us.
So did you use any of your geology background to choose a place to live?
Yeah, the most important thing was choosing a geophysically safe place because the time frame we're going into is increased volcanism, increased earthquake activity, and that means increased tsunami risk. Not only that, you have increased tornado size and hail size, and you could have gigantic cyclonic events that have never been seen, like the Cat 6 hurricane. It doesn't exist. Yeah, it does. When you get a hurricane that's got sustained winds at 250 and go up to 350, that has to be a different category. So they don't get that. Like there will be a Cat 6 and there will be a Cat 7 because Cat 5 can't be from 150 to 900. That wouldn't be a bad scale.
They're really trying hard to make it that way, though.
Yeah, because they don't want you to know that Cat 6 is coming. And it even goes crazier. Let's get back to the first parcel we bought, Oppenheimer Ranch Project.
Uh-huh.
We found out that Frank Oppenheimer owned it. So let's delve into the history. Frank Oppenheimer and Robert Oppenheimer invented the atomic bomb. They worked side by side. You've only heard of Robert because he was the guy that wanted to be in front of the camera. Frank and Robert did equal work on the bomb. When the bomb was used to kill people, they both said, that's not what you told us that's not what it was for. And so they were labeled as communists because they don't want to kill innocent people. Oh God, they're communists. So we kill millions of people in China that will never come here. And we cage the Chinese people that are here. Japanese. It doesn't, they're people. That's why it's so confusing to me. And these two guys are like, I can't believe it. And so they're like, you're communists. Here's 500 acres. Go hide.
Well, in truth, Frank at least did join the Communist Party. And he got so much flack from that. I mean, he was literally blacklisted from his career. And man, I wish I had that quote in front of me right now.
Yeah.
What's the name of the book? Darn it.
Something wonderful.
Casey Cole wrote, yes, something wonderful happens. I don't know. Anyway, whatever it is, I think it's Casey Cole. She wrote a book about Frank Oppenheimer, whatever the title is. And she has this wonderful quote where he's basically says something to the effect of, when you've been totally shit on by society and government and all of your colleagues, the thing to do is like go to the mountains of Colorado and shovel horse shit. And it was like, oh my God, that's us. Not only that, but when we read this book, we then found out, because we didn't know, is that Frank Oppenheimer was one of the first people to really understand what cosmic rays are.
He invented the first cosmic ray detector.
Yeah, which was using a weather balloon with magnetic plates in it. That's all he did.
Yeah.
So this is how he figured out that these are just, this is ionized elements hitting the atmosphere, which then causes water to accumulate around those ions, and we get clouds. First person to get it. So there's something synchronous going on there. There's a reason why we are where we are.
Are there any other places in the United States that you would choose to live, geologically speaking?
With the same benefit, right?
Anywhere south or west of our region, the problem with that is securing safe, clean water and being far away from people. And, any place is safe that you believe you can make it and you have the resources. Any place, because I believe intention is 90% of the solution. If you think where you're at is safe and you stockpile the necessities, it will be. If you have the right team. The right team. Yeah, if you're hesitant and you're like, we're safe. You're not, don't use that information because you don't know what you're asking. So you have to make your own list of what you think is safe because no one can predict what's going to happen. So what we did is made a list of all the things that could happen. What if there's a major earthquake? What if there's a major volcano? What if there's a big tsunami? What if the whole city is starving and they're coming for us? And where can we grow food? And the safest place happened to be a shitty place to grow food. So we were starting the Oppenheimer Ranch project, and I said, you know what? I know about geothermal energy, greenhouses. If we can grow food in Pagosa, then you can prep anywhere.
Yeah.
Our growing season is 73 days. It's shorter than Fairbanks, Alaska, which is like 84 days. And last year we had a growing season less than that. It froze in June 23rd, and it froze again like October 1st. That was like 59 days.
Wow.
But you can grow kale starting in January and grow it all the way to December. But you can't grow tomatoes or peppers or squash or anything unless you can get it in there.
Or unless you have a greenhouse. I mean, a lot of these things are factors that you kind of have to juggle about, kind of what he was saying. What's most important to you? I mean, there are some things that are non-negotiable. Water. I was just talking with somebody about this. Water is absolutely critical. I mean, we are so lucky where we are because we've got the cleanest water in the country coming off the divide. I mean, literally for about a year, we were drinking water straight out of one of the rivers, which I don't recommend anybody do because, you can get giardia or whatever. But we knew somebody that had been drinking this water for 30 years, unfiltered, and we trusted him, and we did it, and we didn't get giardia, which is great. But, water's tough, and every place is different when it comes to water. So in the Pagosa area, there is a ton of mineral content in the water. And if you have a drilled well, you're very likely to have extremely high mineral content to the point where you can't even soften it enough to not damage the pipes in your house. Also in Pagosa, there's tons of sulfur underground. So what we did is we avoided buying land in places that did not have a river valley. Because we have river valley property, that means that we can dig what are called culvert or gallery wells. These are shallow wells, like 12 feet down, and you're literally harvesting groundwater. So if you drill a well, right off the bat, you've got to sink 15 grand just to drill the first hole. And you don't even know if you're going to hit water yet. And then you might hit water, and then your water might be garbage. We know lots of people that have well water tapped to their house that stinks of sulfur. You can't drink it. It's unpleasant. There's... Yeah.
Our friend up the road
Yeah.
can light her water on fire like it's frack water right out of the faucet, and it stinks so bad that when she washes the dishes, we have to go.
Yeah.
There are places, like on the farm I grew up on, we had 3 wells within 40 feet of each other. Each one had different water. One had sulfur water.
Interesting. Really interesting. Yeah, no, that can happen. And so like if you're doing a culvert well or a gallery well, it's a lot less expensive. If you're doing it in the right place, you're likely to hit the water and you're not likely to have these kinds of problems because this is a different water source. What was I going to say? Something. And then the result is that lots of people in our area just simply have underground cisterns. There's water delivery services in our area, but when shit hits the fan, that's not going to be available. So I feel like that's one of the most important things you can look for.
In one rain event in the high desert, you could collect 30,000 gallons of water off a single roof.
Yeah, you can do that too.
But you're doing a earthship house, and the earthship house they're building in Taos, Mexico, or somewhere. They're collecting water off a portion of the roof on the back of their house.
Yeah, and you can do that on any building.
Rain, they take it through a 4-step use cycle. And that's all the water they need for the whole year.
Yeah, and that's an option for anybody, really. As long as you get enough precipitation in your area, you're pretty. You can collect a tremendous amount off of it. Yeah.
So even a desert place with minimal precipitation is possible. I mean, think about it. But here's the problem. When we're talking about water, almost all of North America has been fracked. Almost all of the deep aquifers have been tainted. Now, they mandate that they put them below an aquiclude. So there's a solid piece of rock that they have to penetrate through to put the poisonous frac solution, or even frack at. But during a major earthquake, crustal shift, or event, that's going to crack. Not only that, 100% of all frac wells fail. They have a longevity of 50 to 70 years until they fail. So the entire North American continent is, the groundwater is polluted with radioactive salt water forever. The residence time on that is tens of thousands of years. So it was very difficult for us to find a place that close to the continental divide where nothing upstream is allowed to be fracked. Our river has been preserved because it was like the federal government diverted 90% of it into Arizona and screwed all the ranchers that sued. One of the only rivers in the U.S. that is federally restored 100%. So it's one of the few stories that the American public actually won, is our valley.
Some states like telling people they don't own their own rainwater.
Say it again.
Oh yeah.
Aren't there some states that are saying you can't use the rainwater, it's ours? Yeah.
Well, it kind of still is. I mean, there's a limit to, legally speaking, there's a limit to how much water you can catch off your roof in Colorado at the moment. It was just increased, but it's still a real pain.
It used to be 50 gallons per house per storm.
Now it's like, I don't know, 200?
50.
They don't. They don't. And the argument for it is that, oh, well, you're depleting the groundwater when you collect it. I'm sorry. If my house is taking up this square footage, do you think water is getting into the ground underneath my house? The
We
water
have
coming
groundwater
up,
at 8 feet.
it's like, no, that's nonsense. Plus, it's a drop in the bucket. I mean, it's nonsense.
Yes.
Well, what they do in Missouri is we can collect our rainwater, but they're just gonna charge us every time it rains.
I mean, this is hilarious. This kind of goes right.
Yeah, right? I'm not kidding you. Yeah.
I mean, in a way, this kind of goes right back to the anthropocentrism we were talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, it's all our fault, right? You know, everything that we do affects our Earth in some immense way. I mean, let's not forget that when Galileo suggested that the solar system does not revolve around the Earth, that it revolves around the sun, he was excommunicated, right? We have been on this track of being completely egocentric, that everything we do has some massive effect in the rest of the galaxy, and it's nonsense. Granted, there are 8 billion people on this planet, and that does have an effect. And yes, we've totally raped this Earth, and it's disgusting. But I mean, not everything is about us. You know, it doesn't mean that the aliens necessarily look like us. They could look completely different. They may not even use oxygen for all we know.
They may not even be in our dimensional realm, because they're Adrian. We have had conversations where we talk about higher level civilizations, where if humans evolved for 1 billion more years, we avoided all catastrophes and we kept getting higher, that we would have the ability to tap the center of that plasmoid in the middle of the Milky Way, which is a black hole, by the way.
It just happens to look like a donut.
And there's
A
7
two-dimensional
of them.
donut, mind you.
There's 7 black holes right at that spot. So these civilizations would literally be running off of galactic energy with no waste through some type of things we haven't even thought up. But they're still flying back to Earth to abduct you and mutilate our cows, because they don't know what cows are made of.
We're still level 0.
Yes, we're idiocracy level.
Negative.
Do it.
Do you think, what do you think the reason is that people keep on seeing and filming the TR-3Bs?
Because
hidden in the clouds?
Because they're there.
Because they're all over.
I mean, is that military like planning a fake invasion, or is that?
So there is the Stephen Greers that have made up that idea to make a movie to make millions of dollars. That's true. But earlier we're talking about the practicality of any of that. So if the U.S. government and NASA is a fraud, and the alien stories you've heard about, Bob Lazar saying that he did reverse engineer technology that we found, that the U.S. government is simply using Tyler and others to perpetuate the alien lie to you while they do their secret experiments in their anti-gravitation machines, because they are off planet. They do have higher technology. They are underground. Humans called the government. They are there. They're not aliens. And they probably don't have live aliens that cooperate with them, because that just doesn't make any sense. There aren't live aliens on Earth. They're only allowed to hide in the closet. Would you take that deal? You can stay here, but you got to be underground in the bunker. And then so like, yes, but their skin is not. So you can write the fairy tale about the creature that has to live underground because he's not with the sun or whatever. But there's no evidence for that. It's just a fairy tale. Occam's razor says it's likely the U.S. government has alien technology that they found and they're keeping it secret. They shared it with other countries. We're developing it. And if we just were able to manufacture element 151 in a few years, then we're just starting to learn about what this shit we found 50 years ago even is. So, and then we have even ion drives we're testing in space all of a sudden, and anti-gravity shit that we're watching everywhere, like these triangular, whatever these objects are that look like giant drones. So this is not new. And just the fact that there's, what are there, tens of thousands of aliens that we've never even found one person doesn't talk to them. We don't have one ET at home that eats M&Ms. So the odds of there being that type of hominid alien that we work with in an off planet is probably very close to zero. But the odds of us having alien technology that was being hidden from you is probably very close to 100, because there's so much shit they're hiding from us, right?
Even the Germans, when they were doing
Yes,
World War II, was saying that they
big
got
time.
help from these things that discovered.
Yeah.
I have one question I wanted to address, because you hinted it in your earlier talk, was the Doug Boyd, the pulse coming off the sun and whatnot. I heard you, I think you were talking to somebody else about that, like you thought that was what was getting us out of the worst of the ice age that brought us into glacial whatnot. Are you thinking that the next drop off is just a drop off, or are you thinking that the Doug Boyd thing is the?
I think the last micronova or whatever event ends that major glaciation is over.
Okay.
That was 11,500 years ago, caused the mass extinction, the temperature to come up 15 degrees. We don't have to worry about whatever that mechanism is for 85,000 years. What we have to worry about is the Earth going into a major glacial phase starting now. And that is what's happened the last 500,000 years on like clockwork. The grand solar minimum is such a tiny 400-year cycle. In the 26,000-year cycle, there's hundreds of grand minimums during that. It's like the wiggling of the EKG. So in our time frame, in decades, humans have to worry about the climate changing just a degree, because it's going to affect our bottom line in farming. But at the same time, the magnetosphere is waning, which is when crazy things happen on Earth. It's when evolution occurs. So, and it's also where, so some of the most highest cultures, according to esoteric teachers, the people that built the pyramids, Machu Picchu, these were people that were high in culture during the peak of the ice. So let's say 26,000 years ago was maximum ice on Earth. That's when the pyramid people were doing that, which is weird. So, and if you look at the Yuga cycles, we're supposed to be going into an enlightenment period. And the enlightenment periods all occur during the maximum glacial periods. So we are the smartest and best humanity in about 60,000 years. Mm-hmm. And it's when it's the coldest and worst on Earth. And it is my conception that the more people that are connected through the spinal cord and their consciousness, the worse we are. And the less you know, the worse we can tap into that consciousness. And when we have a small group of people trying to survive on Earth that are more communal, that our spirituality swells and increases, and we're actually tapping into there's less ego, there's more third eye, there's more telepathy. And so we have no need for language at a certain point.
Most people are asleep.
We're working together.
Yeah, and if you go with the idea too that if you can get into the idea that on some level we all have a shared consciousness of some kind. Well, when there's 8 billion people on the planet, there is so much noise in there. So we've been talking about this a lot lately, that maybe that is what sort of keeps people dumb and distracted. There's all that noise in there. So like, how can you really, but if there's fewer people on this planet, it may be then that we really start getting smart.
The majority of people that try to meditate say they can't because it's too loud, and therefore they don't meditate. Then they try again. They say, oh, no, I can't meditate. It's too loud. And then I tell them, no, it's how it starts every time you meditate. And it's because there's 8 billion people that also don't know how to meditate. So you're hearing the noise in their head, which is them going, I will never meditate. I'm a slave. It's like the hive mind of insects that are going to work and just existing. Because it's easy to meditate on like global meditation days. If you've never tried to meditate, try to meditate on a global meditation day. Turn
Much
on
easier.
global meditation channel, because there's a million people now actually meditating, and you'll close your eyes and be like, it's a little quieter. Maybe I can meditate. But the more you close your eyes and sit silent, like the Alan Watts I play in the beginning of the show, the only way you can smooth running water is to wait, right? It calms down when you wait. So if you close your eyes and it's loud, do it as long as you can till it pisses you off. And then tomorrow, do it again, and you'll be able to go further. If you can only sit with your eyes closed and breathe for a minute, then you win. Tomorrow, it'll be 2. Then it'll be 5.
It is about practice.
Yeah, and then you'll be stretching at night and doing before you go to bed, because we've lost the old ways. If you learn about something called the 5 Tibetan rites, which is also called the Fountain of Youth, these are esoteric teachings that are calisthenics with yoga that are supposed to activate your chakras. And so when you do it, like the first one is spinning. So you have to learn how to spin, and you have to spin clockwise. So you start by spinning 7 times every morning, and then you increase it to 14, then you increase it to 21. You don't increase the number if you get dizzy, because the purpose of you spinning is to start to get your electromagnetic servo corrected for the earth at that moment, so that you don't take in negative energy, so that you don't get sick, so that you don't get cancer, so that your immune system is in stasis. You start with the energetic centers of your body by spinning. How many of you have ever been dizzy because you're so focused on work and doing shit that you don't have exercise, you've eaten crappy, and you're trying to just walk and you're not walking well? I always find myself like that. I was like, I remember that when I was drunk with doing that, but now I'm like walking, I'm like, why can't I walk? It's because I'm off balance. I'm imbalanced, and spinning keeps you in balance.
To me, the proof that this works is I grew up being trained as a dancer. And so I learned what is called spotting, right? When you dance, you pick a spot on the wall and you turn and you keep your head going forward, right? This keeps you from getting dizzy, ideally. But you know, the whirling dervishes in Turkey, those guys do not spot. They just spin and spin and spin, and they do it for like 2 hours. And so there's got to be something to that, you know? Yeah.
It's a trance state. So it literally eliminates all the negative influences of the lie. You can literally sicken yourself and get cancer by the lie. You can literally make yourself get sick. You can literally heal yourself. The placebo effect is simply the Jesus effect. Jesus was able not to tap God, because you are God. He was able to convince you that you could heal yourself through him. But he wasn't healing you. You were healing you. We can all heal ourselves because we all have the same energy as every other single human. But our energetic signatures are all unique and all purposefully sickened by this society that we live in. The food that you eat, it starts with fluoride. If you think they're spraying poison in planes, they don't need to. They just put it in the water starting in the 40s. And now they don't even use sodium fluoride. They use some other crap that's from the gypsum industry that's totally poisonous. It's like worse than actual fluoride. It's fluoride times 10. And then ask any dentist, does fluoride whiten teeth? No. Does fluoride harden teeth?
Is this very
Do we put fluoride in our children's mouths? Yes.
Well, there's even a thing that's called where people get their teeth messed up from fluoride.
Yeah, fluoridosis. It's like streaked teeth.
So, I mean,
When I was a kid, you could opt for the non-fluoride treatment. It was 5 times as much money. And it tasted 10 times crappier. It didn't even taste like mint. It was like, you're like, ah! And you hate
And
your
it's
mother.
been pushed on people. I mean, my mother, bless her soul, she's now passed, but she totally objected to these fluoride treatments. So every time I went to the dentist as a kid, she'd say, do not give my daughters fluoride. Do not give it to them. Do not give it to them. And then she would pull me aside and go, they're going to try to give it to you anyway, so make sure you say no. Every single time they did. And I go, my mommy says no, I can't have that. You know, but it's just like the fact that you have to fight. It's like, why is that happening?
We used to have fluoride pills that you gave to kids.
Ah.
I know, I used to get them.
They would tell you on your teeth how much more fluoride you need to eat because you didn't brush right. Yeah, that's sick. So we live in a sick world where you're poisoned. There has been internal tapes from Monsanto and companies like that where they actually poison whole cities. They get the people down, they make a decision. Should we poison 10,000 people? It'll save us 80 grand. And they say, yeah. because the litigation afterwards will make $8 billion, and that can't cost that much to litigate.
Except the one lawsuit recently, Monsanto has to pay out $2 billion for one case. Progress.
Which is great because Monsanto is already gone, and Bayer will make some kind of negotiation with the country. Who knows? So we have just a few minutes left. 10 minutes. Any other questions?
My only other question, I've been waiting like 2 years.
Well, get it out.
It's really not that good. It's something I just don't get, and I know you talked about it in a lot of your videos, but can you just please explain in really layman's terms the whole Z-pinch thing?
Yeah.
Explain it.
What?
Z-pinch. Z-pinch. So if you watch some cool videos on water on YouTube, water flows best in a spiral. And in fact, all liquids tend to form a vortex. The same thing happens in plasmas, because plasmas in space act as liquids. And the energetic tendency of these plasma streams is to get vortical. So they start spinning. And then this vortex is what was coined a Birkeland current.
About ball lightning, it is a vortex.
Ball lightning.
Documentary on that.
Yeah, that's a closed vortex.
Those vortex, it's like an atomic particle almost. Macroscope.
But these Birkeland currents
Scalability.
connect objects. So when we have these giant objects of mass in a vacuum space, they're connected by electricity. And many people predicted that Earth is connected to the sun, is connected to and we're all connected. And sure enough, as Voyager just recently left what is it called? The plasma sheath, the solar sheath? Like we're outside of our solar system.
Heliopause.
The heliopause.
Thank you.
The first thing it saw was the Birkeland current leading away into space. And everyone over there was like, oh, yeah, they're right.
Those electric universe people, man.
What the hell is that thing?
Something going there.
So there's an umbilical cord from Earth that goes out, but we don't know where it goes. We just watch it go out. But the Kabbalah, the tree of life, explains that tentacle goes to Orion. That's what it says.
This is what I mean.
Really?
Please keep going with it.
So anyway, you have an electrical cord now from Earth to Orion. Let's say this is hypothetical.
Is this star to star, you think, or is it?
Yeah, every level. There is a connection of a Birkeland current at every scale. If you Google or look up in the Webster's plasma scaling, you start with an atom that has things spinning around it, then you can scale it up to a solar system. Then you can scale it up to a Milky Way. It's all the same thing.
Yes.
You can scale it up to the universe. Then you can scale it up to something we haven't seen yet called the superverse, which has millions of universes going. And then there's something else called the I need to be a giant to get that big. You know what I mean? So it goes to every level and every micro level. And then when we spend billions on colliders and they hit shit together, even those particles are doing it. Because there's no dark matter, there's no dark energy. They're just simply funding the rest of their life until they die. Because if all those physicists said, yeah, there's no dark matter, they're all fired. There's nothing for them to do. That is their entire life. Then they'd have to write a book.
So that's the electric universe you talked about.
Yeah.
It's the electric universe. So these Birkeland currents are everywhere. The major ones that go long distances from galaxy to galaxy can tend to collapse, and it's unexplained why. Can you give us a good idea why the pinch occurs? It's random.
It's at the resonance point.
Probably a phenomenology of space-time. So why do it collapse?
So if you take a vein, a long enough vein, there's going to be thinner areas and areas where
Well-
shit
Stretched
collects.
out less. There's less to sustain it, maybe.
Well, and if you imagine that the entire universe is one big electric circuit, right? Where all of the even that gravity, the idea of gravity can be explained by electromagnetics, those forces. So somewhere along the way, there's going to be a variable that's going to cause, a circuit to break down over here and maybe reform over here.
But the beauty of the Z-pinch is where everything comes from. So electricity is flowing everywhere, like a neural network in the universe. And then some reason this vortex collapses and touches. There's a mistake. And then you have a creation. The light comes that you can, then there was light. Then you have the star. And then the star that's created on that pinch starts emanating energy. Doug Vogt, information flowing out of the star. All that ever was, the information ever exists in the universe flows out of the pinch there. And it includes every atom. Whatever pinch dynamics that's occurring at that point creates the atomic element table of that pinch. And so when we went to our star, I was like, the star doesn't make water. The star don't make shit. It's helium.
Guess
blah,
what
blah."
it does?
Our star in the solar wind makes every element on our table, which is why we're made of it, which is why our planets are made of the elements in our solar system. And if we find objects in solar systems that are odd, that don't match our table, they probably didn't come from here. So there's a good way to think of it. But a Z-pinch probably creates all the elements at that point, and the conditions at that pinch creates the solar system around the pinch. And that's just basically the whole concept on how everything is created. Everything is infinite, eternally created by these electrical circuits that break apart and reconnect, and they pinch sometimes and form systems. And at the scale of time that this occurs, we're talking billions of years for a pinch and a system to come and then go. So to say that it's a very interesting concept. And the reason it works better than anything we've been taught is because there's nothing left out. We don't need dark energy to explain 90% of shit. But you have to live in an infinite universe that has always been here, which means that the shit that you think you know now is so wrong.
Right.
This has been here forever. And so all the ideas of reincarnation are probably true. We are recycled, energetic entities that happen to be humans. And maybe we keep coming back as humans, or maybe we come back as other entities. But if we're all energetic, electric creatures, when we die, we go in the Berkeley current. That's the trip to heaven.
That's freaking awesome.
So, and maybe when you're in the Berkeley current, you come by the first Z pinch, and that is like your God, or let there be light, because you're actually moving through the universe. But that would be my take on it. Do you have?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of some of these ideas is, like, in particular, I think the scalability that we've been talking about. Everything that's happening at the atomic level, it is happening in a similar way on a macroscopic level. My background, my collegiate background, is in philosophy of science, which I can explain to you what that is if you really want to know another time. But and with that, I specialized in physics. And the thing that really always drove me nuts is that you've got a different set of rules to explain what is happening on the quantum level, what is happening at the universal level. None of it's, the languages are totally different. I mean, when I pick up my old quantum mechanics book, I mean, it's literally in another language, and I can't remember that to this day anymore. But none of it works together. So you got all of this science with specialists. I'm working in this, pseudoscientists. I'm working in this little field over here. This is all I know. I don't want to hear about anything else, and then you got this, and none of these people actually talk to each other. Well, if they did, maybe, huh?
It's called stovepipe.
Yeah. The fact that it's been so difficult, that science has long given up the idea of kind of having a much more universal explanation for how our universe works. That's bothered me forever. And it wasn't until we learned about electric universe theory that the light bulb went off, because that is really where you get a model of how something works, and what do you know? You can apply it in 200 other places. And that tells me we're totally on the right track.
And let's get into the spiritual entity aspect real quick, and I'll just give you my experience. So right at the time when my brain function started to recapitulate the paleoclimatology from decades ago when we met. We're starting to get into a
So we didn't mean decades
No,
ago.
I'm saying decades ago I was in academia. When we met, we started talking about paleoclimatology. So I was teaching her what I knew, and we were talking about electric universe. And that's really how we got into it. But I started to meditate for the first time in a very long time. And I started to delve into the spiritual realms. I would go outside, I would look up, I would stare at the stars, I would ask for guidance or whatever it is. Just being honest, not asking God. You can call him God, but mine's a spaghetti monster or something. And sometimes she's hot. But that way I don't get in trouble because it's God. But my point was that I'm out there asking for the universe for information, and we're studying the electric universe, and I thought it was hokey, but every time I would study some information on maybe Sirius as our binary or another star constellation or the esoteric information that Dogon, I would go out and look in that area of the sky. With the information I learned, I'd be like, just look up. And then one night, and it was near solstice, it wasn't the 21st, it was around the 20th, I went out there and looked at Sirius that one night, and I had this tingle go through my body. I was like, it's like, it's not cold out, but something crawled up my spine. Like some people think it's a spirit that goes through them or whatever. But at that moment, all the missing volcanoes and questions that I was asking those professors in the field that they're like, we don't know. It's a missing volcano. It all was like, no, it isn't. It's electric. I saw the plasma discharges hit all the Grand Canyon, Zion, Bryce. I saw the unexplainable features. The missing sediment that's not in the Gulf of Mexico was vaporized into plasma due to high output from an external source. And it all hit me at once. So I just started typing. I know what the Grand Canyon was made in a day. And Dave Talbot, who is Mr. Electric Universe, who I don't even know, found me the next day because he saw that on the internet somehow. And I needed to do an interview with you. And then I had to Google him. And I was like, what the fuck does he want to talk to me?
I remember that.
And as we set up the Skype, and the first thing he said to me is, "You're a fucking maniac."
Yes, he did.
Is that a good idea?
Oh, I just
First
want
thing he said.
since Simon just mentioned it, this is a little bit off topic, but I just was thinking about this in another lecture today. Spend some time looking at Google Earth or just looking at a map because, man, there are plasma scarring events all over this planet. For a totally different reason, I was recently looking at the map. I was looking at the Ozarks, and I went, wait a second, this is another plasma event. And the reason you can tell is that you've got these weird shaped lakes. They all look like kind of like neural networks or fractal patterns. And there's no originating river source. They're just these weird holes in the ground that are totally bizarre shapes. And once you get a feel for that shape, if you really start looking at the maps, they're everywhere. It is everywhere. So there's a lot that has happened on this planet.
Yeah, there's a lot of electrical things we don't know.
Yeah.
Lichtenberg patterns are everywhere. And we used to be taught as geologists they're dendritic drainage. But then dendritic drainage patterns on planets that don't have water. And you see dendritic drainage patterns on
You go,
everything that
wait a
ever we
second.
take a picture of. And you're like, what's going on? And then Mr. Tutoff is some guy in his basement sending 80,000 volts through shit is making the same dendritic patterns with electricity.
Yeah.
And you start to realize that they are onto something. And why are they withholding it? I don't know if it's all truly being withheld. I think it's being compartmentalized in stovepipes. People are being funded on little pieces of the puzzle, and no one has time to do the kind of work we do in these realms. We are freelance scientists that are multidisciplinary, which is not available at colleges anymore. You cannot do that. And there's very few people that can do it. I guarantee if all scientists could get $100,000 a year to be a multidisciplinary scientist, they would all take it.
They would do it.
They can't. They have to publish 13 papers and peer review, and I have to get the funding. And there's got to be dark matter, or I don't even know what to write about. Do you notice there's now like 800 names on a single dark matter paper where they didn't find dark matter?
Well, it's a great job security. I mean, you're never going to find it, so you just keep working.
It took us 800 to figure this out. Ain't none. We need a bigger collider. Guys, thanks for coming. It's an hour to the VIP dinner. I don't think there's any more speakers. And we'll be here all weekend.